Welcome everybody to this film by Matt Dickinson and Lee Aaron, two local historians, about the great history that we have along Plantation Road. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty, but of course it has its history over time. We've had Arden Hall, we've currently got Owl Hall, which is undergoing a historic renovation as close to its original heritage. And of course we had the mill at the top of Plantation Road that employed several dozen workers. For most people the area is a very pleasant place. The road itself leads to the top of the Coppice, and whilst there's a sense of history, it's took the efforts of Mike and Lee to bring it all together in this documentary, to showcase what's good about local history and to ensure that it's kept for future generations. And I'm really pleased that Mike and Lee have put the effort in. The area itself has undergone significant renaissance and an interest from people in Accrington. The gates and the allotment on the corner have been refurbished. The gates put back to almost their original at Arden Hall. And there's been some investment from Lancashire County Council in the Coppice remade project that's seen some improvements towards Arden Hall. This is a fantastic history, and I'd like to thank Mike and Lee for the efforts that they've put in, and I just hope that you enjoy the film that you're about to see. So thanks to Mike, thanks to Lee, I hope you enjoy.
Hello, welcome to Arden Hall. My name is Lee Aaron, a local resident of Accrington who has a passion for this area, for its wildlife, its history. Today we're going to explore the grounds of Arden Hall and all the other historical buildings of Plantation Road. The original residents of the properties we'll be looking at all made significant contributions to the town of Accrington and its people. We'll begin our tour at the bottom of Plantation Road with a visit to the grounds of Arden Hall. Here at the entrance you can still see the original stone gate posts from 1846 when the place was built. Though the hall itself was long gone, the entrance remains closed to its original state. Unfortunately, the original wrought-iron gates and railings were removed and melted down as part of the Second World War effort, when all iron was in great demand at the time. The gates and railings you see today are replicas that were funded through a grant applied for by the Friends of Arden Hall. You can see from the 1997 colour photo how sad the entrance looked without its gates and railings. Though at this time there were swings and a children's play area in the grounds. Let's move into the grounds for a closer look. As we enter the grounds of Arden Hall, you can see how much the driveway is overgrown nowadays, but you can still see the original outline where it sweeps around to the left and then to the right in front of the house. You can just see the original steps to the house in the distance. Let's go and take a closer look. I'm standing on the original steps of Arden Hall. What a magnificent house it was in its day. Built by Benjamin Hargreaves in 1845, he was to live in it until his demise in 1880. Mr Benjamin, as he was affectionately known by many, was a tremendous benefactor to the town of Accrington, the friend of the poor. One can easily imagine a poor soul in need making the trek up to Arden Hall in the dead of night to seek out Mr Benjamin's kindness. As a well-respected employer of the Broad Brickworks, he treated his employees with due respect, and they in turn held him in high esteem. Of Benjamin Hargreaves' many contributions to the people of Accrington, those that are still evident today includes what was the original Peel Institute until 1865, when it became the town hall. The Hargreaves family took a deep interest in this memorial to the statesman Sir Robert Peel after his death, with Mr Benjamin being most active in its promotion and fundraising. Another of Benjamin Hargreaves' interests that benefited greatly from his support was the Mechanics Institute, which he had been associated with from its inception. As the Accrington Subscription Library, Mr Benjamin Hargreaves was the first name on the roll of members, and he served as its president and principal supporter for many years. In 1879, the members of the Institute showed their appreciation of Benjamin Hargreaves' contribution by holding a banquet in his honour. Other Accrington institutions to benefit from Benjamin Hargreaves' benevolence was various churches. He donated half of the entire cost of the building of St John's Church, and he was one of the largest benefactors to the cost of Christ Church. As long as Mr Benjamin was church treasurer, there was never any fear of deficiencies. Mr Benjamin took a keen interest in day schools and was closely associated with the day school of Christ Church. So it is no surprise that 10 years after his death, the Benjamin Hargreaves Memorial School was built in 1890 on Plantation Street, just along from St Paul's Church. Although the house is long gone, the original coach house that belonged to the house is still standing and even today still lived in. Benjamin Hargreaves had a great love for his dogs, and on the Plantation Road side of Arden Hall grounds he had a row of headstones marking the burial places, each with their names and dates on. From Moffy's Friend in 1850 up to Daphne in 1871, there were about 7 dogs in all. When the grounds became open to the public, sadly the headstones were removed. However, during the course of making this video, Mike, our cameraman and producer, discovered 2 of them, as you can see from the coloured photos. Moffy's Friend of 1850 and Lulu of 1858. In 1880, the same year that Benjamin Hargreaves died, Mr Joseph Edward Raleigh took up residence at Arden Hall with his new bride. Mr Raleigh was another well-respected man in Accrington who was a Justice of the Peace and County Alderman. He took over the management of his father's business at Hyndburn Chemical Works. Sadly, his first wife died at the early age of 49, leaving behind their son Oliver and daughter Thelma. Mr Raleigh's wife was renowned for the garden parties she regularly held in the grounds of Arden Hall. She was also a great supporter of the local NSPCC. Mr Raleigh died in 1910, and for a time his widow remained living at Arden Hall. The next occupiers of Arden Hall were Alderman Arthur Smith Berry and his wife. Mr Berry was highly esteemed in Accrington as he fulfilled many civic duties in the town. One of his greatest honours was in 1911 when he was elected the town's mayor. Though the Berry family was industrious in the cotton industry, it would appear that Arthur Smith Berry was so employed in the town's affair he would have little time for aught else. Though we understood he still managed Union Cotton millwright up to his death. Mr Berry suffered great tragedy in his life through the loss of his wife and their only son during the First World War. He died in October the 3rd, 1938 at Arden Hall, aged 72. It was to be 10 years later that Arden Hall was demolished due to its dilapidated state. Though not as obvious this time of the year, there are a variety of fruit trees in the grounds of Arden Hall. Most significant and easily picked out is a row of lime trees, which presents a beautiful display in the summer months and were very popular with the Victorians. Here we are back at the entrance gates of Arden Hall, and so to complete this section, enjoy a small gallery of photos that have been taken of the grounds of different times of the year. Like me, I am sure you'll agree Arden Hall is certainly worth a visit at any time of the year, and each season brings its own sense of beauty. Benjamin Hargreaves was buried in Accrington Cemetery. Records there reveal that although he purchased 2 burial plots, he only appears to have used the one he is in himself. As you can see from the photo, his was a substantial grave with room enough to accommodate more than one. Research hasn't uncovered where Benjamin Hargreaves' wife was interred. To the right of Arden Hall entrance gates, we have the original hexagonal base that once housed the gas lamp that can be seen in an old colour photograph of Arden Hall entrance. As we walk up Plantation Road, there is a sketch of how Arden Hall and the grounds may well have looked in their earliest days from here. Almost opposite the coach house is Leaming's Path, or Pad, as some of the locals call it. The lane is believed to have got its name from the Leaming family, who had the Field House farm that it leads to. At the lane entrance, the remains of the old original style are still in place. Further along the lane, on the left, we can catch our first glimpse of the front of Owl Hall and its grounds. Undoubtedly, the 2 colour photographs we have of the place would have been taken from this vantage point. We also have a coloured postcard picture of Owl Hall from the Field House Farm approach on Leaming's Path. The film footage and photographs of the burnt out remains of Owl Hall present a sharp contrast to how the place looked in its former days. Owl Hall was occupied by James Grimshaw in the mid-1800s, and like his neighbour Benjamin Hargreaves of Arden Hall, James Grimshaw was involved in the calico printing industry, which his family ran from the Plantation Mill complex at the top end of Plantation Road. During his lifetime, he made an outstanding contribution to the town of Accrington and its people. He was the poor law guardian for the town and the chairman of the town's first local board. James Grimshaw began his career as a boy at Vauxhall Bank Printworks and continued it as a block printer at Plantation Mill Printworks. His employer, Mr Denham, recognised James Grimshaw's aptitude for the business, and he was promoted to the position of foreman, eventually taking him into partnership. In 1840, when Mr Denham died, James Grimshaw took over the management of the business at Plantation Mill along with his sons, Joseph and John. James Grimshaw remained at Owl Hall until his death at the age of 72 in 1873. Owl Hall was occupied by the Grimshaws right up to 1973, when the last in the family line, Ivy Grimshaw, died there as an 85-year-old spinster. It was from here, many years earlier, that the young William Denham Grimshaw stepped into his father's shoes and became involved in the running of Plantation Mill. During this time, William had Plantation House built at the rear of Owl Hall with an adjoining driveway. Though very overgrown nowadays, evidence can still be seen of the driveway by the line of trees either side, as we will see shortly. After Ivy Grimshaw's demise, Owl Hall had a very sad life that almost ended in its complete destruction through a fire that raged through the building in 2007. As if that wasn't enough, not long after the fire, thieves decided to remove many of the roof tiles that were still in place. Being in an isolated location, the hall was very vulnerable to all kinds of vandalism. In the case of Owl Hall, we are delighted to report what promises to be an happy ending. You can say the owl has become the phoenix. As you can see from the film footage and photos, the hall is under extensive renovations. Having spoken to the new owner, we have been assured that it will be restored in keeping with its original design, though 3 more houses will be built on the land. These 2 will be built to blend in with our surroundings. With a similar gateway close to Plantation House, it initially proved difficult to determine which was one in the black and white photograph. However, with a little help from Mr John Kelly, a local historian, we managed to pin it down to the gateway at the back of Owl Hall, that is in Rodney's Lane, to the field where he keeps his horses. It's remarkable after all these years to see the stonework that is still in place as it was when the black and white photo was taken. I'm walking up what was the original driveway from Owl Hall to Plantation House. James Grimshaw, youngest son, William Denham Grimshaw, had Plantation House built about 500 yards to the rear of Owl Hall, shortly after he took over from his father in the running of Plantation Mill. Not only do the trees still define the driveway, but at this time of year you can see clumps of daffodils here and there on both sides. A little over halfway along the driveway on the left, there is a huge chunk of land that has collapsed because of the excavations that were carried out. When Plantation Mill closed down around 1935, Plantation House was demolished shortly afterwards, and plans were drawn up for a dairy to be built by the Cooperative Society on its land. In the end, the planned dairy was built in Accrington West End, but what a shame that such a magnificent house was demolished in the process. Picking out the shape of Plantation House isn't that easy from ground zero, especially with something like 76 years of nature overgrowing it. But we can still just figure out the turning circle that was at the front entrance, and the foundations in red brick for the greenhouses at the rear of the house can still be clearly seen. Here I am, stood in the gateway entrance to the rear of Plantation House. Turn to your left and it takes you onto Plantation Road. Turn to your right and it takes you into the grounds to the rear of Plantation House. If you look behind me, you can see the remains of what was the lane leading to Plantation Cottages. We're not sure when Plantation Cottages were built, but assume they were part of the original Plantation Mill complex due to its close proximity. We do know that the first of what used to be 3 separate cottages was occupied by the mill's foreman, and one of the others by a mill worker. The middle cottage was occupied by the local water bailiff. With several reservoirs in the area, he would be a busy man. Nowadays the cottages are of one complete residence and is understood to be owned by the National Health Service. Plantation Road is renowned for being one of the longest unrestored cobble-set road in England. Prior to the opening of Plantation Mill, it was nothing more but a rough surface track. But with the building of the mill and its residents, it was made up as it is today. Work on its maintenance ceased after the Second World War. We finally reached the end of Plantation Road, but not the end of our journey, because it is from here that the Plantation Mill complex used to take up much of the surrounding landscape. As one can imagine, both families had interest in the calico printing industry. They will be very closely associated, sharing support and enthusiasm in a number of local institutes. Like the Hargreaves, the Grimshaws were tremendous benefactors to the town of Accrington. Though part of the area was used by the council as a tip, we'll see what remains there are at Plantation Mill. this road we see now wasn't in existence till the mid 1940s. It cuts right through the mill complex. The mill site now is sadly overgrown with all these trees, but we've still got evidence of the engine room, as we can see with the big stone sets and one or two engine studs still visible. Plantation Mill was one of the oldest works in the vicinity of Accrington. It started out as a fulling or pulling mill, but moved onto calico printing shortly afterwards. Evidence of its existence in 1793 can be confirmed by an article in the Blackburn Mail newspaper that reported the drowning of a young man in one of its lodges at Plantation Mill on July the 14th. Its owner in 1795 was Henry Aspinall. Calico printing commenced in earnest in 1910 by Oldham and Holding. Before the Industrial Revolution, Accrington was no more than a small village with a population of 250. And in the 30 years of industrialisation, that figure rose quickly to around 4,000. Plantation Mill was one of the few calico printing works in the country that remained in business from the end of the 18th century right through to 1934. The Directory of 1818 gives the name of the company running Plantation Mill as Gibson Swan Company. Mr Gibson, one of the original partners, severed links with the Plantation Road business and became an employee at Broad Oak, another calico print work. Plantation Mill was taken over by another company under the name of Hargreaves and Company, with Mr James Grimshaw as foreman of the block printers. After bankruptcy in 1826, the firm became Greaves, Denham and Grimshaw. Following the deaths of principal partners, James Grimshaw succeeded Greaves & Co. as the principal of the firm, which was carried out on several generations under the name of James Grimshaw and Sons. As mentioned earlier, it was James Grimshaw's youngest son, William Denham Grimshaw, who took over the reins of his father's business at Plantation Mill. After his death in 1923, a limited company was formed with Mr F.W. Greenwood as managing director until it closed in 1934. Looking towards Moleside, this is one of the original lodges that fed the mill workings. This is very likely where the 36-foot wooden water wheel was situated that driven power into Plantation Mill. As you can see, the water course has been purposely man-made to get the water onto the wheel more efficiently. On the other side of the stone culvert, the sluice gates are there still that control the flow of the water. Now at the other side of the culvert, you can see the slots in the stonework, both sides, where the wood sluice gates went to control the flow of the water to the water wheel. This is still the original wood base to the sluice gates, and here we've still got a metal bolt, a metal pin bolt that went straight through here. I don't know what it was for, whether it was to tie the gate, the base gate together or what, I don't know.